When we talk about the pride of nations, we should not think about only about how one nation or one culture is above the others. Nations and cultures interact with each other, and this is true more so in today's world. And as such, we need to think about culture and nation in a global perspective as a globalized phenomenon. Even if that word is used and misused and abused throughout, we have to think that culture and Armenian culture has been part of that globalized nature. Be that because they were invaded, they were occupied by the Mongols, by the Persians, by the Ottoman Empire, by the Russians, you name it. But at the same time, there was an interaction of culture. Not to mention also the fact that Armenians lived in so many different communities. This is another important aspect. Armenians were dispersed even before there was a genocide. Something to think about. An identity. They had an identity which was beyond a trauma, beyond a tragedy. Something to also think about. And when we talk about cultural globalization, Armenian cultural globalization, one thing that comes to my mind, one name that comes to my mind is Sayat Nova, an average guy born in Tbilisi. His father was from Syria, from the city of Aleppo. His mother was from Tbilisi, and this guy lived at a time where empires clashed. There was a clash of empires: the Russian, the Persian, the Ottoman. But in all that, he sang in 4 languages. He sang in Armenian, he sang in Georgian, he sang in Farsi, and he sang in Turkish. All this as a testament again as to how he was a link between these different cultures. The reason why I'm talking about these different cultures is at the end of the day, when we look at our culture, we should not consider one culture above the other. There is no cultural purity. Culture is always about give and take. Culture is dynamic, and whether we like it or not, we learn from others, we take from others, and we give others. So that's one of the things as a nation, for a nation as dispersed, and similarly dispersed like Armenians, this is a major issue, major thing to think about. In 2 days, some of you here will celebrate Armenia's Independence Day, 19th anniversary, 19th year of independence. This coming after 9 centuries, 900 years of domination and loss of statehood. Now, 2 things about this independence celebration. A state is only as strong as its people. And in this case, like many nations here in this cultural garden, most of its people sometimes live outside of the state. And we have to realize that this state is in the process of forming its statehood, its society, its culture, its economy, and so on. But more importantly, the state is only part of the chain which makes up the Armenian nation. Cleveland is one of that chain, part of that chain. Boston is another. The United States as a whole is another. Lebanon, Iran, and so on and so forth. Armenians living throughout. They form this chain of Armenians, and the state is part of that. And we need to also work towards strengthening that chain. This brings me to the other point. Most of you here, if not all of you here, and including the names at the back of this monument, are people who have multiple identities. What does it mean to be an Armenian? What does it mean to be an American Armenian? What does it mean to be French Armenian, Iranian Armenian, Lebanese Armenian, Russian Armenian? And while some people would look at this as a form of a problem, they would say, well, where would your allegiance be? Are you an Armenian first and American second? Well, I look at it actually as a form of enriching experience. Not necessarily. You shouldn't look at yourselves and your identity as being half Armenian, half American, or 25% Armenian, and so on. You can be 100% Armenian when you choose to. You can be 100% American when you choose to. You can be 100% anything when you choose to. Identity is not a simple math. Identity is a form of being. Today, you woke up, you feel you're a father, you're a parent. You feel that becomes your identity, regardless of you're an Armenian, French, or no citizenship. So from that perspective, I think we need to look at our diversity as a source of strength. When I look at Armenian diversity and the dual or multiple belongingness, I celebrate these vast arrays of diversity in the Armenian universe. And it always makes me think about the phrase, infinite diversity in infinite combinations. Now, some final thoughts about this. When I just mentioned about multiple identity and belonging to several groups or several belongings, having several belongings, and I think this is very common in nations which are diverse and dispersed. It doesn't matter. You'd see sometimes you would have a triple or multiple identities. You might be an Armenian, so you have your Armenian identity born in Iran, that would be your second identity. Then you would come to the United States, that would be your third identity. And then for some odd reason you move to a weird country no one has heard of, that might become your fourth identity. But at the end of the day, it's something that nations with such an experience are able to tackle. So it's not about allegiance. It's not about preferring one over the other. And on the contrary, one of the things that we need to think about is because of the fact that we have diversity, because of the fact that we have diverse identities, we actually become links in different nations, in different cultures. It's not an issue of one culture is above all. That's borderline racism, and that's something that people need to think about. It's not that we are better, one nation is better than the other. No, it's not about that. Actually, the more diverse you are, actually that would be an indicator of how good of a culture you are. I think one of the last name on this list, which is the name of Hrant Dink, who was a Turkish citizen of Armenian descent, Armenian, Turkish. He had two identities. He was assassinated a couple of years ago. A lot of people look at this, and I think this is the testament. The last name exemplifies what I'm talking about. Hrant Dink, when he was alive, Armenians never paid attention to him. And the reason why? Because mostly he was talking about working at two levels. He wasn't trying to get the genocide recognized in Turkey. He was trying to make a Turkey which was more democratic, more open, more in tune with its past and admitting its past. Be that the Armenian past, be that the Kurdish past, be that the Ottoman past, everything. And many people, frankly, didn't like him. In his death, he became a symbol for many people who didn't agree with him. However, he exemplifies to what extent he was a Turkish citizen, trying to make Turkey a better place, an open place, and he paid with his life. He always said that he was afraid for his life and he was going to end that way, but at the same time believing that a better Turkey, an open Turkey, and a developed Turkey would also mean a recognition of the genocide, which also was axial, which was central to his Armenian identity. I will conclude with one word, or with a passage from a poem, again from a guy whose name doesn't appear here, Baruch Sebag, perhaps one of the more revolutionary as you could be in Soviet Union, actually, poets of his time. And you might be familiar, some of you might be familiar with this poem and actually a passage, but I'm not going to quote with that passage. It goes, "We are few, truly, but we are Armenians. And by being few, we do not succumb. Because it is better to be few in life than to control life by being many. Because it is better rather to be few than to be masters by being many." And he concludes, "See, we do not put ourselves above anyone, as you should do. But we know ourselves. We are called Armenians. And why should we not feel pride about that? We are, we shall be, and become many." Thank you.